We'd like to give a special thank you to Ryes and Grind for hosting the Society of Barley Engineers. Thank you.
Cool. Yep. I will start. All right, everyone, raise your hand if you can hear me back there. Perfect. Awesome. Great. Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Louis, and I'll be presenting on how to serve beer. And to be honest, when I was first presented with this topic to present, I was like, oh, serving beer, yeah. Here you go. You know, like here, that's beer. It's great. It's delicious. You should drink it. But the more I looked at the topic, the more I kind of researched into it and, you know, looked at the nuances and how to serve beer. I kind of went down this rabbit hole, kind of, sort of. And it actually is a lot more complex than it may seem, at least from the other side of the bar. And so a little bit about my experience. I was actually in the restaurants for a really long time. I actually waited tables in college. I actually worked at Red Lobster for a long time. I actually worked my way up to management, and it's kind of unfortunate hearing all the problems that they're having right now. But yeah, that was my home for most of my 20s, actually. But what really got me into beer was right before the pandemic. So in 2019, I went to a brewing program over at Miracosta, the TCI, and they had a brew tech program there, and that was what got me into the brewing industry. And we held our classes through the pandemic and worked through all that, and it was a great program. So definitely recommend that for anyone who wants to know the production side of the brewing industry. TCI was headed by Mike Stevenson over at Culver Brewing. If anyone knows Culver over in Carlsbad, great dude. So. But yeah, with that, worked my way working in a couple of smaller breweries throughout, and eventually made my way over to Stone Brewing, where I'm at right now. At Stone Brewing, I lead the tours, the brewery tours over there, and I do pour and serve beer over at our tasting room right beside the restaurant. One thing that I am trying to accomplish right now this year, I am studying for the level 2 Cicerone. I do have the level 1 beer server Cicerone, which is beer server certified. I'm not technically a Cicerone. They made it very clear on that. So the level, they did actually, and so the level 2, which I'm actually studying for, that it's a 2-parter written test and a sensory food pairing portion, and all that will be happening later this month into next month. So yes, I've been reading a lot of books, way more than I wanted to, but deep diving into that, and so this is a great opportunity for me to kind of show you guys what I've learned and what I've experienced all these years. So I wouldn't be we wouldn't talk about pouring beer if we didn't go over what types of bar setups or draught systems that are out there in the world. And there's a couple of basic types that you would see out there. We have the direct draw system. Actually, what Ryes and Grind has is actually the one on the left here, kind of a direct draw where the kegs are actually underneath. And then you have the faucets just right above, and you just pour directly from there. It's a pretty basic system, actually. What we have at Stone is also a direct draw, but kind of on a much bigger scale, where basically the cold box is actually in the back of the wall, or right on the other side of the wall, and the tap handles are on my side over here, and we just would pour directly straight from the kegs on the other side of the wall. So again, that's the direct draw. It's the most simplest and easiest if the restaurant or establishment can have these sets of systems. It's actually a little bit easier to work with. If they don't have that set up, and it's impossible for them to have a cold box or a kegerator set up right behind their bar, they would have to do what's called a long draw. And really the only difference with the long draw is that glycol chiller right up there. And so basically what the glycol chiller is, it keeps all the beer cold as it travels from point A to point B. In this case, it would be traveling from the cold box to wherever the the taps are anywhere in the restaurant. And so in the restaurant side over at Stone, we actually have a long draw system. And so if anyone has been to Stone before, most of you have the bars like right in the middle of the restaurant, and so the lines actually travel underground about 150 to 200 feet through the kitchen. Right behind the kitchen, almost at the very back outside, is the cold box, and that's where everything is. And so it's a very complex system. I won't go into the details of the drought system, but the long draw, you have to use a combination of carbon dioxide and nitrogen blend, and the reason why is because in order to push that beer through such long lines, carbon dioxide is actually a very expensive gas to acquire, and so most restaurants will get a nitrogen blend to bring down the cost a little bit, and it will accomplish the same thing. And so that CO2 and N2 blend would go through a micromatic gas blender and push that beer through however long the lines are, all the way up to the taps, wherever that bar may be. And so if you're going to doing a party like most everyone is going to be doing tomorrow for the 4th of July, there is some other options that you can use. We have what's called these hand pumps. Basically what that does, it kind of forces air, oxygen into the keg as you're dispensing beer. That pushes the beer out into the faucet right there where you can pour the beer out. A lot of people think that they treat this kind of like a regular bar setup, and so once they tap that keg and they pump, they use the pump, they pour the beer out of it, they think that, okay, cool, when we take off that pump, we can use it again the next day. You actually can't, and so the reason why is because you're forcing air into that keg, and basically it's almost like pouring a beer just straight out of the glass, and so you have basically less than 24 hours once that keg is tapped with these hand pumps to use that. However, you can keep the keg fresher a little bit longer. There are some setups that have a CO2 cartridge, like a mini CO2 cartridge that you can attach. So instead of forcing in air, it will actually force in CO2, and so it'll keep that beer a little bit fresher. But party pumps are meant to be just a one-day use, just for that day. So there's a lot of people that do private events, weddings, and stuff that thinks that they need like a full keg to serve like a bunch of people, and actually most of the time I usually recommend just getting like a sixtel instead, because like wasted beer sucks. We definitely don't want that. So thank you. And I agree. So these are the setups that you can use if you're outdoor at a picnic or at a beach. Definitely these hand pumps. And you would see these in a lot of the jockey boxes as another type of a temporary system. You would see that in a lot of festivals, and a lot of us definitely go to those. These jockey boxes over there, typically we see the coil setup, and so basically it's these long coils that are chilled and will keep the beer cold as the beer dispenses through the coils out into the faucet. And what this one here, I honestly don't see this one too much. It's just like a plate chiller that will just put the plate will be inside the jockey box. Just put some iced water in there, and that's basically about it. This setup, it's more of like a contact with the beer, and so this one to me is not as reliable as the coil system, and that's the one mainly that I would see in a lot of the festivals out there. Yes.
Just a quick comment on the plate chiller. It works.
You're on. Yeah.
The plate chiller works for festival type events, like we have homebrew festivals, where it's basically quick pours. Longer pours if you're pouring full pints, not as good. But the plate chiller is very effective for short, quick pours in a festival type condition.
Okay, that's good to know. Actually, I didn't know that, so no, that's awesome. maybe that's why I see a lot of the coil systems more out there, because we tend to pour like more than just a quick little sip. We tend to pour almost like a half pour in the
it
pint.
seems like amongst the club, about half of us have the cold plates and half of us have the cooling coils.
Got it. Okay.
It's kind of a mix.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Good to know. Good to know. So yeah, those are temporary systems. Again, the hand pump and the jockey boxes. Those are mainly meant for just the day use, for right then on the spot. It essentially, whether or not you use a temporary system or a long draw or a direct draw system, the main concepts of pouring that beer into the glass or into your cup. One, you want that correct temperature, and so that's super key. Many a time, especially on the hand pumps and the jockey boxes, we get that beer poured out and it's all super foamy. We all get super annoyed and super frustrated and figuring out what's going on, and a lot of times it's just that keg wasn't cold enough, and so we just have to be sure that keg is kept super cold in that ice water, or in the walk-in. Proper CO2 or the CO2 and nitrogen mix also plays a huge role. If that beer isn't being pushed through at the proper pressure, then you will get that foamy beer. The flow rate from faucet also relates to that. A lot of faucets come with a regulator where you can regulate that flow out into your glass. Clean equipment, clean lines. At Stone, we clean our lines basically every 2 weeks. We follow a certain schedule, and that allows us to pour that perfect pint every time. And the maintenance and the cleaning schedule, I actually do the maintenance over at Stone for the draft lines, and so I have this whole spreadsheet that I submit over to the bosses every other week saying what we did. And it's really awesome that we do that, because it ensures that the cold boxes stays clean, that the lines are super fresh. I personally feel very happy pouring that pint out of that glass, knowing that pint was definitely poured the correct way from what the brewers intended. Any issues with the above tools will cause the beer to become foamy or flat, resulting in a longer wait time and an unhappy guest. And so I'm sure everyone here has waited at a bar for that beer tender or bartender to pour that pint, and just letting that foam and getting glasses and glasses of foam out, and you're waiting a couple of minutes now, and so it gets a little frustrating. It does get frustrating for the bartender as well, but we definitely want to try to avoid that so we can keep those pints flowing through all night long. And so this picture over here shows kind of the proper pint on the left there. With I'll go over what the ratio is, but that 1 inch foam at the top is super key. If the beer does not have any foam in it, you have a good chance that beer will run flat, and so when the customer tastes that beer's going to taste off. And so ditto when the beer is foamy. That over foam, the beers, that customer's going to feel like they've been shafted, like you're giving me air, I don't want to drink air. I want to drink that beer. And so definitely the one on the left is that the best way for that pint to look like. And so with that, there's many different glasswares that we can use to pour that pint. Some are historical, some are just what we have just around our house, and so it's kind of this rabbit hole going through all the glassware that we have out there, because a pint glass can look like a pint glass, but there's many different styles and variants on how they can look. But at least with the Brewers Association, a couple of trade publications, there is some certain classifications of the proper glassware that is out there in in the world. And so here's a abbreviated list, if you will, of all the glasses that are there. So the American pint or the shaker glass, this one is the traditional pint that you would see mostly out there in a lot of your local bars and taverns. The imperial pint or the nonic pint right up over here. This one is actually more of a pub style pint glass, and so this one you would see in a lot of, especially in Britain, a lot of British pubs will pour their pints out of these glasses, and so a lot of ales would definitely benefit from using this type of glass. And the tulip pint, which is another version of the pint glass right here, kind of has the kind of like a slender base going up into a wider mouth. And so with all the glasses that you see here, the general overview of the glasses, whether or not you use one or the other, sometimes it can be due to the cost from what the restaurant has, whatever they have in their hands, and whatever they can get for cheap, they will, go with that, which is totally fine. But in general, though, what the tulip pint, especially what that does, because it has a shorter, a narrower base, into that wider mouth, it kind of develops those aromas. As you take that first sip, all those aromas will come rushing to your face, and so that's in general the tulip pint and the imperial pint. That's what that kind of does, and so all these glasses are definitely fair game for a lot of ales, especially, and IPAs. Going over down the list, we have a couple of other glasses here. The Pilsner glass. This is one variant of the Pilsner glass. It looks a little bit different from what is on the slide, but this Pilsner glass in general kind of has that a very tall glass with a very short base right here. And so what the Pilsner glass is meant for, it kind of has a it kind of has the appearance, since you're looking through the glass, all that golden liquid that is pouring in that glass, and so as you take that sip, all those aromas as well will be you'll feel that the moment you take that first sip. Another version of the Pilsner glass is actually called a Willie Beecher, and actually I wasn't able to find one. But the glass is kind of similar to the Pilsner glass, but it kind of has it kind of juts out and then it juts back in, kind of. It has this weird like diamond shape almost to it. I personally have not really seen this glass out there in the wild, but the Willie Beecher kind of is, you will pour Pilsners and lagers and a lot of lighter beers also in that glass as well. And from what I've read, you would see that glass in a lot of traditional pubs and bars, especially in Europe. And then the Weissenglass over there, I have a, I'm going to use this glass as well. I believe this one, someone said that this was a Pilsner glass. I think it's more like a Weissenglass. But the Weissenglass is kind of similar. If anyone has seen the Blue Moon commercials, this is exactly what you would be seeing for that style of glass. It kind of has again, it has the very wide mouth over there to let all the aromas and flavors kind of shine through over there. Yes. Yeah.
Hey, hang on a second, Chris. Hang on. It's a long walk from back here.
Thank you.
So the Pilsner glass, is that an American Pilsner glass?
That's
because
a good
in the
question,
Czech
yeah.
Republic, Pilsner Quell is served in like a mug.
Yes.
Like a rounded mug with a handle on it. And they pour it with a big head on it and like 50-50 of beer to head in it. But it's like a very different glass from what I originally learned was a Pilsner glass.
Yeah, and I think what I've read, the reason why, so like a mug, something like this, is mainly meant for festivals. And so like Oktoberfest or, you know, other big festivals, they will be mainly drinking out of this glass, which I'll go over that in a little bit. But this mug actually has that handle to keep your hands away from the glass so that the beer stays cold the whole time, because it's a big glass. Usually that mug, you're going to be drinking it for a while. Whereas the Pilsner, I am actually not sure if that's like an American thing or if it's a European thing. I have seen in Europe some variants of that type of Pilsner glass, but the whole point, and I forgot to mention on the Pilsner glass, that base right there is just like to keep your hands away from the liquid, so that the liquid or the beer stays cold every time, all the way up until that last sip. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure if this in particular is just strictly in America or elsewhere, if it originated here. But I do know that a lot of festivals and events over in Europe would use a mug instead, you know, because of the volume of beer that they are drinking. So maybe that answers your question a little bit. Yeah. So okay, so going down more into the glassware, we have the tulip glass. The tulip glass is the glass that we use here at Stone, and so this is kind of like an all-purpose glass, and so this would be used in a lot of European beers, like British beers, Scottish beers as well, and sours, ales, lambics. It's kind of it really is an all-purpose glass, and so this is a 10-ounce tulip glass that we use at Stone. The goblet or the chalice glass is a little bit more specialized. I actually don't have an example of that glass right now, but a lot of you would use the goblet glass for a lot of the stronger beers, so like the Delirium or Belgian Tripel, Quadrupel, you name it. And so the goblet is typically smaller in volume, and so as a result, it's a sipping beer because of the higher ABV that will be in that glass. And then the Stange glass, I have a nice little tiny one right up over here. Looks very beautiful, very exquisite. The Stange glass is a glass that you would see for a lot of delicate and light beers, such as a Kolsch, Pilsners, Lambics, and alt beers. And then rounding out some other glasses, we have actually a special glass for IPAs. I have actually one right here, and this glass is the reason why it's shaped like this. Again, it's to ensure that the beer is kept cold all the way until the very last sip. And so, as you hold the glass, most of the liquid is confined to the upper part of the glass. And so, as you keep on sipping and tasting this beer, it will just keep on getting cold all the way through. And then the snifter glass. Most of us are very familiar with these tiny, tiny glasses at every beer festival or event. When we get our free glassware, this is the type of glass that we will have. The snifter glass traditionally is meant to not just to taste, but for extremely strong beers, high alcohol beers, and that's what you would see in a festival out there. The one on the right, the Tiku or the Tiku glass, that is actually a special type of glass that was made over in Europe, and this Tiku glass is actually perfect for a lot of lambics and sours. Some could have a stem on it, and right here I have this cool glass that I got from Pure Project actually last year. This is an unstemmed version, and so what is special about this glass, again, it has that wider mouth to let off the aromatics out as you're sipping the glass all the way down. And so the only reason why you would have the stem, again, to keep your hot hands away from the cold beer as you're sipping it all the way down. And then rounding out the last set of beers right here, we have the classic Hofbrauhaus Oktoberfest Stein right up over here. As I mentioned with Chris, a lot of lighter beers and lagers would be poured in these beers, Oktoberfest beers as well. The mug is a smaller version that you would see in your local pubs or bars, but essentially it does the same thing. And then lastly, we have, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Das Boot right up over here. A very, very pretty boot right up over here that also you would see only in festivals, especially Oktoberfest. And all these beers right here, clearly you would use lighter beers, lower ABV beers. I definitely would not drink a 9% beer out of any of these glasses. I would not be able to go home afterwards. So with all these glasses, with that, there is a proper way to present it, and we present it by having the glass clean. And so, has anyone ever been served beer in a glass that was not clean at all? Like, how did you feel about that? And it doesn't feel it doesn't look good. It doesn't have that nice presentation. You actually might get a lot of off flavors in there. The most common one, if anyone has ever had glass that had, lipstick on it, or like you can see the lip stain on the rim of the glass. It's not good. It's not pleasing at all. And so with a dirty glass, of course, the dirty rim, poor head formation. I actually didn't know this, but if you serve beer in a dirty glass, the foam will actually reduce faster as a result. Also, the cleaning bubbles on the glass, that's actually super, super hard for a restaurant or establishment to have a clean glass without any of those bubbles. Most glasses, I will see 1 or 2 bubbles inside the glass. To me, that's acceptable. I'm not going to really cry foul over that. But excessive amount of bubbles is a problem, because what's going to happen is that the carbonation is going to leave that beer faster, and so your beer actually is going to get stale quicker. And so with that clean glass, though, you will not have that issue. You'll have that lacing on the glass, which means that the foam is staying as you're drinking the beer all the way down to the end of that glass. And so as a result, that carbonation, the flavors, the aromas actually will stay in that beer the whole entire time down to the very last sip. The retention, as I mentioned, and the clean glass surface all constitutes that clean glass. There's a couple of ways that bartenders or any beer connoisseur can test whether or not their glass is beer clean. The most popular one is the sheeting test. All you have to do is just get a glass, just rinse it with water. You can just rinse it with hot water, dump it out, or if you have a special glass rinser that you can just spray water into that glass and clean it right away. That's actually the preferred method. That's the easiest way to do that. So as you rinse the glass, if you see the water if the water doesn't clump up at all anywhere in the glass, you have a beer clean glass. The salt test, I feel, is the most expensive and it's not very useful to me personally, because who has salt lying around? Not a lot of us do. But what the concept of the salt test is that after you clean the glass, you rinse it with water, and then to test it if the glass is clean, you will sprinkle salt all over the glass. If the salt coats evenly all throughout the glass, then it's beer clean. And of course, you would rinse out the glass before you pour the beer. Don't leave the salt in there. And then the lacing. And then the lacing test. Really, the lacing test is only you will know that the glass is beer clean at the very end, because we've all have drank the beer. But again, it's all about that foam, keeping that foam from the very top of the glass all the way down to the very end, all the way down to the very last sip. If that foam has stuck to the side of the glass and you see that even layer of foam, sip after sip after sip, you definitely had a beer clean glass with that beer you just had. And so I've actually experienced this a lot when I'm pouring beer at Stone. A lot of people will say, "You gave me too much foam. Pour it all the way to the top. Get that foam out of there." To a certain extent, I'm okay with that. I will do that. Maybe that 1-inch foam, maybe I'll make that a little bit less, but I'm like, no, you want the foam there. And there are certain times I'll have to educate the customer why that foam is good. Why is the foam good? I mean, it's visually pleasing, one. Has anyone had a beer that where there was no foam and the liquid went all the way up to the top? I mean, it doesn't look that good. More aromatic sensations. The foam will actually, as the carbonation leaves that liquid, it will start, the bubbles will start popping as on the top of the glass. As the bubbles start popping, that's where you get all those aromas that contributes to the flavor of your beer. And the enhanced flavors and carbonation also makes that beer way more delicious. And so also, I didn't put this on the slide, but us bartenders, we also don't want to fill the beer all the way to the top, because that's when all the people just spill the beer all over the place as well. And it'll be a mess for me to clean up at the end of the night. We really don't want that. So, but yes, foam is okay. And so again, most beers, typically you do that 1-inch foam. That's kind of the general rule. And so there are cases where you can have more than a 1-inch foam. If you've ever had a slow pour Pils or a lot of Pilsners that are in these staged glasses, the foam will actually be a little bit more than a 1-inch foam, and that's totally acceptable. So it really depends on the beer style. And so with this proper pour, I'm going to go through these slides a little bit quickly, and then I'm going to demonstrate a pour here with my little growler that I have here. So with that proper pour, when you have your glass, make sure it's beer clean. Give it that rinse test or the sheeting test. You would pour that, hold the glass at a 45-degree angle, and then as you hold that at that angle, and when you open the faucet, the beer will start flowing. Now, a lot of bartenders, a lot of people will get nervous when they see the beer pouring out because there is no foam yet inside that beer. That's actually totally fine for that early stage in the pouring process. And so as the beer will pour down the glass, once it gets about 2/3 of the way, then we can upright. We'll keep the glass upright. And when we tilt that glass, the beer streams down the middle. That's what actually causes that foam. And generates the foam head, and you continue pouring that as you finish filling the glass. And then once the foam reaches about 90, like a smidge, almost 100% to the top of the glass, then you can close that faucet. The foam will accumulate and grow a little bit more. The art is to not let that foam spill over the edge of that glass, and it's an art, definitely. And so. The proper pour, again, should allow that 1-inch foam head on the beer at the top of the glass. And so I'm going to demonstrate a perfect pour right now with my growler right here. Pressure, I know. I'm nervous. And so I have already a pint glass, a tulip pint glass over here that I already have cleaned. Definitely,
hold
to
just
my expectations. We can do the salt test, we can do the sheeting test, but I've tested it already.
All right, hang on just 1 second, Louis.
What's that?
Let's get a camera on you.
Oh, okay. Oh, really? Okay, really. Now I'm getting nervous. Now there's a camera here.
No pressure at all.
That was a practice turn.
That was a practice.
That was a
turn.
practice turn.
So to be fair to me, the growler works right up over here. It's a great growler. I love this growler. But the CO2 cartridge, I have to play around with it a little bit. So. This beer is the Stone American Pilsner, which we all are going to try actually in a little bit. So. Thank you, Chris. All right, round two, guys. Round two. And actually, it's interesting. Whenever I do draft maintenance, it's funny how the foam accumulates in the first on the first pull, and the foam kind of subsides as you keep on pouring the beer. So I'm gonna stop right here because I might be here all night. So I'm not gonna do anymore. But yeah, notice the that clarity in the glass, the foam, the head retention. Of course, I'm gonna take a sip. But yeah, that all that foam and the flavors and the aroma and everything just really comes in on that first sip. And notice the glass. Notice how well I cleaned the glass, which I took a lot of time on. Thank you. Yes, no bubbles. Thank you. No bubbles, no lipstick stains, no oils, no other flavor, nothing around the glass that could cause that beer to look not as beautiful as we see right here. So yeah, thank you. Yes, sir. Yeah.
And I'll repeat my question a little bit. So I think it's in Tasting Beer by Randy Mosier that he advocates for pouring straight into the center of the glass and doing a hard pour. I don't know if that's just hardcore pour.
Hardcore pouring, yes. I actually...
I don't know if that's just for like pouring out of a bottle or cans, or if you've... And then he also says like you should wait for it to subside and you keep on pouring it.
Yeah,
up, right?
and it's again, it's somewhat of an art. For me, a lot of barrel-aged beers that we pour straight from the tap, barrel-aged beers generally do not have a lot of foam in them because it's been aging for a while, and so the carbonation, a lot of it has kind of left the beer, and so as a result, if you want that proper 1-inch foam on the top, it's really hard to do, but in general you would do that method to just try to try to release the carbon dioxide or the inside that beer, and then once you get some foam, then okay, it's this kind of constant back and forth tilting the glass and pouring the beer directly straight in, but the ultimate goal is to get some foam on there to keep that carbonation once the beer has been served to the customer, that carbonation intact with that foam on top. Again, it's an art, kind of a science, and after you pour that beer like 15 to 20 times, you kind of get the hang of it after a little while. So, but yes, I do remember that section. I did read that. Yeah. Yes, Kurt. Oh.
Again, it's a long walk.
So I was just at Bierstadt in Denver.
Great place.
2 weeks ago, and it was my first time there. We all had a presentation from Ashley Carter, who is the brewer there, who unfortunately wasn't there, but I did talk to some of the other brewers, and they tell you it's going to take 5 minutes to pour their Pilsner into a glass. And they do. They take 5 minutes.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, it's when Bagby was around, they did a slow pour pills for a little while. That beer was amazing, and so yeah, and so it's all about the customer's expectations as well. And so you would tell them, hey, this beer is going to take a little bit. You're going to love it at the end. Give them that anticipation. Generally, people are cool with it as long as they know. Yeah. Yeah, all at once. Ryan.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you want to know more about foam, Charlie Bamforth, who used to teach at UC Davis, he's like the Pope of foam. He has a lot of good information. He's also hilarious. He spoke at, I think it was 2011 Homebrew, National Homebrewers Conference in San Diego. He was hilarious. I have a recording of it, and maybe I could dig up on MP3 that might not be on the Brewers Association website, but he's hilarious, knows a lot about foam. And, yeah, if you want to dive way into foam and how to get better foam retention and all that, look up Charlie Bamford.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And so, yeah, foam is super important in pouring beer. And so on the brewing side, there is certain malts that will help with that head retention, keeping that foam on there, helping the beer tenders or the bartenders, pouring that beer so that way all those flavors and aromas stay inside that beer to the final sip. So, yeah, that is the proper pour right there. I tried to do it perfectly as that. I was mostly there, except for a little bit more foam than I wanted to. But that is the proper pour. And so some special caveats on some bottles and cans. If you are pouring a bottle or a can directly into a glass, same steps should be followed more or less. If the beer is in a yeast-conditioned bottle, like a Belgian beer or a lambic, reserve the yeast inside the bottle. Ask the customer if they want that yeast or that residue inside. Generally, you don't, but there are some people that want every last drop, every last sip of that bottle in that glass. And so, of course, you run into an issue with that yeast. That yeast might give some off flavors that are concentrated off flavors, which might not be what the beer was intended for. And so, normally, that yeast would not be poured into that glass. But again, some people ask for it. It's not going to be the end of the world if you give it to them. For lambics and gooses, you may use a basket to keep the sediment away from the edge of the bottle. And this is what a lambic basket kind of looks like. I know Andy brought one at some point in a past meeting. The whole point of this basket, not only to make the beer look presentable and make it look pretty, it's actually tilting the bottle to allow the sediment to stay within the bottle. So the sediment will mainly just stay in the bottom lip or the bottom part of the glass. And so as you're pouring that bottle to a beer to that customer, that sediment will just stay in that glass the whole entire time, while also making it look cool as you're pouring that through in a basket.
Hang on, Andy.
Yes.
I'm getting my steps in.
So what I would tell you with pouring an alembic is, and with bottle conditions beer where you have the sediment there, is what you don't want to do is pour like this and then back up right, and then pour and then back up right. So what you can do if you're at like you're at a place like this where you're going to serve the whole beer, you can carry it around like this, and you can just do this kind of stuff and pour the whole bottle out that way. You don't have to have a basket to do that. The basket is most useful at the time in which you're going to set it down. So somebody may serve on it, and then somebody else doesn't serve on it for a couple minutes. You don't want to be holding that bottle, sideways for, a couple minutes. And so that's where the basket becomes useful. But
Gotcha. Yeah.
if you're just going to take it to an event like this meeting right here where you're serving it, you can walk around and you can pour it real effectively if you don't tilt it down and tilt it back up.
Well, you
as
won't
you're
have
pouring
that
it.
sediment like in each and every glass that you're pouring.
The sediment
mostly,
is
right?
there on the bottom, but as long as you just pour it, like this instead of, like this, you won't swish it around, and you'll minimize that sediment getting into the beer that you're pouring.
Very cool. Thank you.
One thing too with the lambics, the reason they have them like that on the side is when they store them in Belgium, they store them laying down is the other thing too. So the sediment is already on the side, which is another big reason for keeping it like that.
All right, good to know. Cool. Thank you, guys. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I sadly have not served beer out of a lambic basket yet. I will. Yes, we will. So awesome. Another specialty vessel is the nitros. And so the nitro cans, such as Guinness, they have a little ball inside. There's actually a name for that ball. It's called a widget. If you didn't know that, now you know. And so the widget, what it does, it actually replicates the nitro tap at a bar as if you were pouring, as if you were tasting a beer, a Guinness beer straight from the tap. And so you would open the top of the can, and in one swift motion, you would turn the can upside down in the glass, and as the beer quickly goes in the glass, and as it fills all the way to the top, you remove that can, emptying the contents inside. The widget agitates the can. Once you flip it upside down, this simulates the same taste and effect as draught Guinness on nitro. There are cans that won't have that widget inside, and so those beers are still considered nitro beers. And so actually the proper way to serve that beer in a can is actually to give it a 3-second shake. Actually, you just do 1, 2, 3, you're done. Then open it up and pour like normal, and that shaking motion will simulate that nitro effect. You can pour the Guinness at a 45-degree angle. I've seen on YouTube there's some purists out there that insist the Guinness is poured that way. Don't do that. Don't do that. Me personally, in my personal taste, if I pour the Guinness the regular way, I found out that the beer tastes flatter faster, and you don't get that nitro bubbles or that effervescence nearly as much as doing it the proper pour, as mentioned here. And speaking of which, the proper pour for the nitro beers. And so you would just place the glass directly underneath the tap and pull the faucet handle towards you as you start filling the glass. Fill the glass about 2/3 of the way, then stop to allow the beer to settle. Depending on the brewery, depending upon the beer, depending upon the effect or the show, it could last anywhere from 3 to 30 seconds. And then the nitro bubbles, you'll see the bubbles start to cascade towards the bottom of the glass. And then after you give it that rest, you push the tap handle back. And what that does, there's tiny holes inside that tap that will put those nitrogen bubbles inside, and actually will create that foam at the top of the beer. And so you would stop pouring when you're almost at the top of the glass to allow for foam to form. Another type of beer that you would use a similar setup would be a slow pour pills from Beer Stott, and also Sapporo. Oddly enough, Sapporo beer, not a lot of people know the slow pour method way is actually the proper way to pour that as well. And so a lot of lighter beers, a lot of lagers actually can benefit from using that almost type of nitro method. The only difference, instead of setting the beer on the bar and pulling the handle down, you would still do the 45-degree angle first, but you would let the beer sit and then continue with steps 2, 3, and 4 above. And so it actually kind of simulates if anyone's ever had Mother Earth's Calicreamin, I'm sure most of you have, that creaminess of that beer is what the brewers are trying to simulate by doing this method. And so there's a special tap handle that it's not necessarily a nitro tap handle, it's a regular tap handle, but it allows the handle to be pushed back, and it has little tiny slits inside the tap handle to allow that foam to come out. And again, the slow pour pills will benefit greatly from that method right there. Notes on the proper pour. Don't ever have beer touch the faucet. Never, 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 ever. Bacteria can form on that faucet, and also on a busy night. Bartenders are slinging beers left and right. You can just get that glass towards you, and oops, you chipped that glass because it hit that faucet, and so a lot of issues will arise from doing that. Proper beer flow from the faucet is typically at a rate of 2 fluid ounces per second. And so whenever I'm opening up bar, I actually will pour a glass of beer, a pint of beer, and I'll count to 8. And so if when I count to 8 that the beer is almost full to the top of the glass, then I definitely have the proper pour, and the bar in the CO2 system is properly calibrated. As I mentioned earlier, some beers require more foam in the glass, such as slow pour beers, as I mentioned. Another type of system would be the cask ale or the beer engine. And so, has anybody ever had a beer directly from a beer engine? It tastes amazing. It's amazing. And so it's a little bit of a different setup, a little bit more parts, if you will. And so the the shiv over here, right at the top of the cask, that's what lets the gas in to the beer inside. And so when the beer is being transported, it will have a spile on, which is this stake that right there that will drive into that shiv. And so that spile is used initially to allow gas to escape the cask during fermentation. And so with that, once the beer gets delivered, then they'll replace that. Before the beer gets delivered, it will be replaced with a hard spile, so after fermentation. And so that will keep the gas and everything inside the cask, and it'll create that closed system environment. And so once the cask gets over to the bar, then what they'll do is they will prop the cask down at an angle a little bit, and the keystone is the area where they can just poke a tap in and start flowing beer out of that immediately if they want to. Or if they want to do it in a more presentable manner, they have what's called a beer engine. And basically what the beer engine is, it's a piston that will pump the beer from the cask into the engine, pouring the beer out. And so with the keystone, they would just plug a tap inside over there, moving that beer from the cask over to the to the beer engine. And so I have some pictures here of what that kind of looks like on the beer engine side. And so the one on the left right there, this is the only time where it is okay to have the beer inside the faucet. And the reason why that this is allowed is because the way the beer engine works, there's actually an agitator at the tip of the faucet, and that agitator will kind of almost in a way kind of shake the beer up a little bit, and it creates that foam. And so that will kind of replicate that proper pour that we mentioned. Or the more traditional way, or the more basic way, you can just do that gravity dispense tap, just putting the tap directly into that cask and just pouring beer out of that like normal. All right, so I know the beer has already been passed around. Thank you, Rich. And so all of you have the beer that was in the growler already? Yes, yes. Rich, you forgot me. Or I can pour myself, so I know, right? All right. Thank you, thank you. This might not be beer clean or glass clean because I've already used it, but this is just for purposes here. So the first beer that we so when we taste, when we serve beer and when we sell beer, you have to know the terminology on how to taste beer, how to describe the beer. It's actually, for me personally, it's a lot harder than I thought it would be. How can I describe what I'm experiencing in my mouth? All the flavors, all the aromas, what am I smelling? What am I thinking of? Where am I at? How can I describe that to somebody? And so in a busy night at a bar or at a restaurant, how can I describe that to somebody in 10 words or less? That makes it a lot more difficult to do that. So what we're going to go through right now is kind of the mechanics on how to taste beer, the sensory portions of it, the emotional part of beer. And then after that, we'll have some exercises with some beer that Rich already passed around and poured. With that, I also have this. We'll see this slide shortly, but it's a flavor and aroma wheel, which describes virtually almost everything in terms of the flavors and aromas that you would experience. If you don't mind, would you just take one and pass it down around so that everyone gets one? I think I made enough copies. You may or may not have to share. If you can share, that would be most appreciated. So we will use this to help describe the beer as we are experiencing this beer together. So breaking it down. So when we experience beer, we generally go through 4 sensations or 4 criteria: taste, aroma, flavor, and sensation. So taste. sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami. And most of you all are familiar with these flavors. Umami was somewhat recently added as a fifth flavor or fifth taste. As many of you are maybe familiar with the diagram of the tongue showing where the sweet is, where the salty is, where the bitter is. Does anybody know what I'm talking about with that? Yeah, so believe it or not, that's actually a very outdated model. And so the whole tongue experiences all 5 of these senses automatically. Certain parts of the tongue will experience one more than the other, but it's not where the back of your tongue is already bitter and the front of your tongue is sour. That is actually proven to be false. And so, but the taste will generally hit you up front, and that is where you will first hit your initial experience. Aroma. It can greatly affect the flavor. There's 2 types of aromas, orthonasal and retronasal. Orthonasal is that first whiff. So as you're experiencing the beer, as you're getting the beer closer to your mouth, you will smell certain aromas. What would that smell be as you take that first breath or that first inhale? That is the orthonasal. After you sip the beer, then you're going to probably swish it around your mouth a little bit, and you're going to experience more flavors, more complexity. And then as you're doing that, the proper way to taste the beer, actually you would breathe out a little bit. As you breathe out, you will experience more aromas. That is the retronasal. And then the flavor is the overall experience combining those 2, combining taste and aroma. It is unique to each person's individual experience and preference, and it can change from first sip to the last. It can also be greatly affected by your environment, by other people, and what you've consumed before. So has anybody ever drank a light beer that we will just name a generalized light beer at a beach or at a picnic? That beer probably tasted pretty good, right? But say that same beer, if you just drank it at home by yourself, that same beer, that beer probably doesn't taste as good as you remember it for some weird reason. That is all about that overall experience. And so the people that we're with, the environment that we're in, the place that we're at will greatly affect that flavor. And I have a good example right up over here too. And so the way to explain it explain what I'm trying to taste and experience to someone, how would I describe the taste and aroma of a pineapple to somebody who has never had one? Or in today's case, taste and aroma of a durian that nobody has ever had before, right? So yeah, it would be you would have to go through. I would usually, if that's the case, I would usually ask the customer, okay, cool. Well, if you've never had a pineapple before, have you ever been to Hawaii? Have you ever had a drink that's super sweet, super fruity? Have you ever had a peach before, or a super sweet fruit? I would start there and kind of navigate to that customer to try to get them to what a pineapple actually tastes like. Lastly is the sensation. It's an all-encompassing thing in mouthfeel, temperature, carbonation, cooling, burning, numbing, tearing, astringency. All those play a factor. And so as you taste the beer, as you take that first sip, what are you experiencing? This is where the complexity kind of comes in. All those kind of play a factor into your overall impression of the beer. And so the tasting process. And so, again, we have this American Pilsner that we have from Stone Brewing that got all passed around. And so as we look at this beer, first off, we look at the color, the clarity, the head retention, and notice how the foam is still sitting in the beer, even though I left it sitting out for a couple of minutes. The color, look at the nice golden hue that I see right here, and how clear it is. I can see my hand right through the glass. This is a great looking Pilsner. And then we swirl the beer a little bit. As we swirl it, kind of bring those aromas out. Some people will leave the glass on the table, cover the glass up, and kind of give it a swish. That is doing the same thing, bringing out those aromas, stimulating that carbonation. And when you smell with your nose first. When you smell that first smell, you're going to experience certain aromas. And then after you do that, when you take your first sip, breathe in while you're sipping that beer as well. The nose and mouth actually are connected, and actually you will have a totally different experience when you do that versus just sniffing the beer otherwise. And when you sip the beer, let it sit on your palate. Contemplate the flavors and the mouthfeel. As you breathe out, note any retro-olfaction, meaning as you're breathing out all those, is there any other aromas or flavors you're experiencing? Has the taste changed? How complex and deep are the flavors we are experiencing? In terms of retro-olfaction or retro-nasal, the easiest one that I can grasp is heat. When you drink a very high ABV beer, when you sip that beer, you're going to taste certain flavors and aromas, but when you breathe out, you're going to feel that heat a little bit on your throat and even sometimes on my nasal cavity right there. That is that retro nasal or that retro olfaction. I am actually pretty sensitive to that heat, and so anything above a certain ABV retro nasally, I can perceive that right away. And so I got this from the Tasting Experience from Tasting Beer by Randy Mosher. I am reading that book cover to cover right now. And so experiencing everything that I just mentioned, Randy actually goes through the tabletop. And so again, just like leaving the beer on the table and just looking at the beer. And then as you look at the beer, you might notice some smells already just by the beer being, maybe a foot or two away from you. And after that, as you bring the beer closer to you, the drive-bys where more overpowering aromas will come up. As you swirl, again, that's where you agitate the beer a little bit, releasing more of those aromas. And then what do you experience with that? The short sniff, this is where you bring the beer closer to you. Just give it a quick whiff. What are you experiencing there with that? Then the taste. As you taste the beer, the flavors, and this is where you can describe the beer fully. And then the retronasal, as you're breathing out, what are you experiencing there as well? So this is a really cool process where you can really experience the beer from one sip to another. And so the flavor wheel that I passed out, these are yours to take home if you want. This is a pretty comprehensive descriptors and a lot of different aspects of beer. A lot of these I've never even seen before. Bake Light, I don't even know what that is. I actually I haven't looked that up yet. There's a lot of chemicals in here that are used to describe beer, like acetaldehyde, geraniol, a lot of other flavors and aromas that I personally had not too familiar with, but if you want to go down that rabbit hole to experience those, definitely feel free. It looks like Ryan has a question there.
Not a question, but if you look on that wheel, you'll see butyric.
Yeah.
Butyric acid. That's what the durian's got. A lot of butyric.
Butyric acid.
Yeah, and
If,
baby diaper. Yeah. Isolamyl.
Butyric acid. Someone refresh my memory. What is that? Baby vomit. Okay. Yes, baby vomit. And it's generally caused by stale hops? Right, caused by durian. I have to look that up. Butyric acid is caused by something in the brewing process, and I'll have to figure that out. So,
That's
Sean?
durian summed up.
Sean, what was that?
Captain, that was bad breath and flatulence, right? Yeah. That's durian right there.
That's durian. Good to know. All right. Okay. Durian aside. So yeah, this is the flavor and aroma wheel right here. So putting it all together, if you were a beer tender, how would you describe an exceptional beer to a guest? How about a mediocre okay beer? That's a tough sell sometimes, and sometimes you got to push that beer through. Got to get those kegs out there. How would you describe it to spin that into a positive? I always say hand sell, and I learned the art of the hand selling when I was working in the grocery stores. Just telling the customer in 15 words or less, using the flavor or an aroma wheel or any descriptors, how would you describe that beer and make it a positive experience? If you would get, and also if you give a guest that taster, give a taster of this beer, this American Pilsner right here, and you tell them what this beer is about, and they disagree with you, and they say, "No, I don't taste that. I don't taste crisp, crackery-ness goodness." What would you say? I wish I could. I wish I could say that. Right. And that's the thing. Yeah, John said it. It's like, okay, what do you like? You know, are there certain beers that you like? Are there certain, styles that you like? Are you a beer drinker? There's a lot of people that I would give this beer to, and they're like, oh, I don't like beer. Yeah, okay, now let's take a step back. Let's go to the beginning here. Let's see what you do like, what flavors and aromas you do like. So this is kind of for the group. If you have the microphone handy, this would be great. If there's a couple of people out here that can tell us what your favorite beer of all time is, and the name of this beer, and in 15 words or less, describe this beer to us and sell us this beer. Any takers? I will actually start. So this is actually the first beer that I ever had. It's the Hoegaarden. And so the Hoegaarden was actually the first craft beer or the first non-light beer that I had in my life. And the Hoegaarden, what I remember out of it was just how bright, how crisp, and how juicy this beer was. And it reminded me of drinking an Orange Julius. Will you want that to buy that pint, or at least try it? So, anyone want to give it a try? Is there anyone that has their favorite beer of all time? It could be a homebrew. I don't care. So, yeah.
I really love a Doppelbock because it has that warm, bready goodness that is just slightly sweet. So delicious.
That is still 15 words or less. All right, great job. Great job, Matt.
I would say Jäfer. It's a German beer. It's from the middle of Germany, and it is a crisp, clean, refreshing lager. But it's also got this kind of herbal, they call it Kräuter, herbal sort of quality to it that is just, it's so unique. There's nothing that can really
Beautiful. All
compare
right.
to it.
So you notice why I said 15 words or less. It's almost like reading a newspaper. The first two sentences. After that, okay, what next? What else? And so it's hard. It's actually really hard. So a lot of times with a lot of these beers that I sell at Stone, I actually, over time, it does take a little while, but over time you just stick to that flavor wheel actually, especially the positive words, and you just dial it into like, whiskey, honey-like, herbal. And then just wait there and maybe throw in a couple of words that could be your own personal experience, and then that's it, and then just let people kind of think in their heads what those mean.
Unless you're trying to describe durian, then you're to the negative
right,
side.
Right. Is there one more? Yeah, we'll do one more. Yeah, I think we have time for that.
So if you do lambic, you could do wet horse blanket.
Yep.
Basement funk. Fruity. I'm at 6. That doesn't count towards this. What else we got? Not the good lambic doesn't have inner tube. I don't think. I feel like the good lambic. Right, tart.
Mind you,
Refresh-
you don't have to
yeah.
go up to 15. You can kind of
Yeah,
stop right
I
there.
know.
And you
Well, I got a lot of pressure on this one. Once you get past wet horse blanket, basement funk, then what else do you need? What else do I need to sell
Are you
you?
really trying to sell it, or I'm not sure.
And also to note with some of these descriptors, so like wet horse blanket can be positive to people like us because we get what that is. To the average person, they might think, what the heck is that? So you also have to know your audience as well when you're describing and experiencing these beers to your people. All right, so we have some beers here. The first one that was already passed around. We have another one right here that Rich will help me pass around too. But going over the first beer that we have here, the Stone American Pilsner. We released this beer in February of this year, and so again, just going through the 4 criteria: the look. A light straw color, clean and clear, white foam with minimal lacing. Aroma, corn, grain, water cracker, hints of citrus and melon, a little floral, lingering herbaceous aromas. Thank you. Now, this is actually the overall kind of the semi-official the descriptors that we have in our official sheet that we use to sell the beer to customers. So with this, you can condense it down to those 10 or 15 words. So yeah, the flavor, slightly sweet as you're taking that sip, slightly sweet with subtle mineral notes, noticeable lingering bitterness, not too overpowering. And then the sensation, medium carbonation, light body, crushable, perfect for a warm day at the beach. Crisp without any astringency or heat. Perfect for a warm day at the beach. I usually just sell it as that. You want to drink a beer at the beach, this is a beer that you should try. And people usually will go with that. All right. So the second beer that Rich is passing around, we are on the last legs of this beer. Sadly, this beer is going to go away very soon, so I would be remiss if I didn't share it with you guys. The Stone Sublimely Self-Righteous Black IPA. What? We will. And so the Sublimely Self-Righteous, we released it in March. It's got about like 30 days or so left, and then sadly it will ride off into the sunset. So this beer is being passed around right now, and so I know I only have a couple more minutes, but here is the descriptors of this beer. Now, as I write this and as I display this on the monitor, already your brain has kind of a bias to what I'm describing on here. And so it's really hard when we do a blind tasting, and I'm sure most of you are BJCP judges, you've judged beer. There's a lot of bias. Someone says, hey, what's wrong? There is something wrong with this beer. Already you have a bias. And so whenever we tap a beer and I personally notice something off, I will share it with somebody, but I won't tell them anything. I will tell them, taste this, and I'll wait. I'll wait to hear what they think. Because if they say it's okay, cool, never mind. It's my personal bias. But if they say the same thing I'm thinking, then there is something wrong, and now we have to figure out what's going on. So with the Sublimely Self-Righteous Black IPA, as you look through that glass, that deep brown color, some clarity through the glass, poured nicely, it will have a beautiful, thick, light brown foam. Aromas, has that touch of smoke and dark chocolate notes, along with pine, resin, and tropical fruit hop aromatics from the dry hopping. Flavors, roasted sweet malts, it hits you first, and then this lingering hop bitterness, has a bit of minerality present from start to finish. Sensation, medium body with moderate carbonation. It strikes a great balance with a dark malty beer and a hoppy IPA. So, for me personally, if I were to sell this beer to you in 15 words or less, it is a roasty, malty, hoppy IPA, blending the best worlds of a dark beer and an IPA all into one. So give me money, get that pint. Okay. So so this is the Sublime and Self-Righteous IPA. I hope you guys enjoy. And so, yeah, enjoy that perfect pint. Thank you. So, yeah, I think we're out of time. Any questions on any? I know we had some questions about the presentation. Is there any other questions on anything that I talked about? Oh my goodness!
When is smoked porter?
When
coming back?
is smoked porter coming back? We have some in archive from our warehouse, deep in the recesses in the very back. You might see an old vintage keg come out from time to time. Yeah, it's, we actually on every batch of beer that we make, we actually reserve a certain percentage of it. Sometimes we'll barrel age it. Sometimes we'll just reserve it for like festivals, like our anniversary events and all that stuff. And so the Double Bastard that just came out very recently, if you all had it, we are reserving a little bit of that, and we are going to be releasing with that same batch Lucky Bastard towards the end of this year. So if you guys know what that beer is. Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's everybody give a big hand for Louis. And before anybody leaves, I'd like to invite Kavan up here. Let's give him a big round of applause for hosting us tonight.
Check.
It's on.
Oh, it's on?
You're good. Yeah.
I just wanted to come out here real quick now that I have a quick second to talk to you all. I want to thank you all for your patience. Thank you for coming out, trying out Ryes and Grind, the Vault venue as one of your preliminary trial runs. Thank you for coming out, being patient. As a quick reminder, we are a full-service breakfast restaurant. So we have full service up until 2 o'clock weekdays, weekends 3 o'clock. LTH is our sister restaurant, so we have over 25 different taps over there, always rotating, always pouring ice cold. So feel free to come on whenever in Oceanside, stop on by, say hi. And again, I just want to thank you guys for coming out. This was the first time. We would definitely have another bartender here or some support to keep it moving a little bit smoother. But all in all, I think it was a great turnout, great group, all of you guys that are here tonight. Appreciate you guys, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the future.
Cool. Thank you.